John Burge back with a performance of a prelude from my 24 Preludes for solo piano. This one is number 23. It's an F major. It has the subtitle Spring Thaw. A couple things to say about this prelude. First, it is the last prelude that uses extended instrumental techniques. In fact, if I perform this piece in public, I'm often asked afterwards is how I find the correct pitches with my right hand. And all I'm doing is just randomly plucking with my fingernail any notes in the top range of the piano. There's no dampers up there, so they resonate really beautifully. The score has high, low, and medium range pitches to pluck. And so that makes it sound like I am purposefully choosing the notes. But really, any pitches up there work. They're just so far away from what's happening in the left hand. And the left hand is playing a chord, but in between the chords, I use a wedge figure. It's called a wedge because it gradually gets bigger in a very systematic way. I start with a note and then go down a semitone and then up to a note higher, so it's a major second away, and then a note lower, so a minor third down and then a major third up, perfect fourth down, and then a tritone up. And that gradually moves up the piano. Now, I don't want to dwell too much on symbolically how you can interpret this piece in reference to the title, but I don't think it's too much of an imagination to consider that as this wedge is slowly breaking ground and moving up the piano, it's very much like the ground or the earth coming alive, and that first crocus, which is a great sign of Canadian spring, breaking forth and blooming. The middle section of this prelude is really quite distinct from the outer sections. Indeed, it gives this prelude a really overt A-B-A structure, especially the way I use some transitions to get from the A to the B section and then a retransition to get back from the B section to the A section. But at its basis, the middle section uses the same gesture as a wedge, but in a more romantic broken chord fashion, which almost conveys the idea that, yes, spring has finally arrived. It's much more optimistic and happier. But in actual fact, we get back to the opening, more frigid texture, which is what often happens in Canadian spring. You get that first taste, and then winter comes back and just torments you for a few more weeks. The last thing I say about this prelude is that because it's the second last prelude and the last one that uses extended instrumental techniques, in my mind it's connected to the very first prelude to use extended instrumental techniques, which was number 2, which has the subtitle Bells in Winter, which is borrowed from a book of poetry, and the Spring Thaw, eventually get to the end, really is just sort of picking up that same kind of poetic interpretation in music. Here the allusion is to a Canadian poet, Margaret Davison, who is constantly drawn in her music to the idea of spring in connection with the resurrection in a very sort of spiritual, secular fashion. And I think all that comes together in this very short prelude. So what we have is Spring Thaw, Prelude number 23 in F major.